Hi, I'm Patrick, and this is the Mach E vlog. If you own a Mach E, or you're considering one, or maybe even another EV, you may be interested in how the federal tax credits work. In this video, we're going to take a look at that, plus some other incentives that may be available to you. So let's get started. First, I should emphasize that I'm not a tax expert. I'm not an accountant or anything like that. I would advise you to verify all information that I present in this video and double check with your tax accountant or other tax professional. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the tax credits. So starting with the federal tax credit, this is all based off of Form 8936 from the IRS, or as they call it, Qualified Plug-in Electric Drive Motor Vehicle Credit. They have some information, if you Google that or go to the IRS website and pull that up. They have instructions as well as other resources, and I'll include some of these links down in the description of this video. To fill out the form, the hardest information that you actually have to put down is the VIN, the make and the model, like 2021 Ford Mustang Mach E and your VIN. You don't need any documentation from the dealer or like a certification from your DMV. Basically, you're just, when you file your taxes, you're making a sworn statement that it's all accurate and true. And if they decide to audit you, you may have to provide something then, but not really a worry when you're just filling it out. For the tax year 2021, the amount for the Mustang Mach E would be $7,500. If you have if you're looking at other EVs, some will qualify, some won't, depending on a lot of different factors. But for the Mach E, it's $7,500. For example, hybrid EVs, they don't qualify, but a plug-in hybrid EV will qualify depending on the battery size, a limited amount. After Ford hits 200,000 vehicles sold, and this is for any manufacturer, after they sell 200,000 EVs, they start phasing out the amount of the tax credit. And for Ford, it's estimated right now that they may hit that number in Q3 of 2022. Just so you know, it has to be a new EV purchase. So if you are looking at a Mach E or other EV that somebody bought, even if it has like 20 miles on it, if somebody bought it, registered it with the DMV, and then they're selling it, that person is the one that will get the tax credit, not you. To get the tax credit, you must also own the vehicle. You don't have to own it, like pay cash. You either have to finance it or use something like Ford Options, which is technically financing. If you lease it through Ford, you can't get the tax credit. Some credit unions, they will do something like they will lease you the car. They'll collect the tax credit, but they'll give it back to you some way via their accounting. But just so you know, if it is leased, it is in the owner's name that gets the tax credit, so you should not file for it because you'll be double dipping and that would be bad. You can only claim one tax credit per vehicle. So, again, if one person buys the car and claims the tax credit, you can't sell it and have somebody else claim the tax credit as well. If you're married and filing separately, only one person can claim the tax credit, obviously. So that's something that you should just be aware of. Now, one thing that does surprise some people is that you can claim the credit more than once in a year. So if you buy like a his and hers Mustang Mach E, you can claim the credit twice if you have the tax obligations that would allow for that. And we'll get into that in a little bit. As I mentioned, they do a phase out of the tax credit once a manufacturer hits 200,000. So what that means is, if you buy vehicle 200,001, it's not like you get zero. In fact, you'll still get 7,500 because what they do, and as it states here, the credit begins to phase out for vehicles at the beginning of the second calendar quarter after the manufacturer has sold 200,000 eligible vehicles, and that's counted from 2010. So with Ford, they've had a couple other electric vehicles other than the Mach E, so their number is already getting up there, which is why they're going to probably hit that, if not in Q3, by Q4 of 2022. And of course, the IRS is going to let you know ahead of time. And it should be noted that Teslas and Chevy or GM, they've already hit their 200,000 limit. They've already, way past that, so they no longer are eligible for any federal tax credit at this time. And here's a chart that's showing some estimates by EV adoption that it looks like Toyota is getting ready to hit their 200,000 in the first quarter of 2022, and Ford is going to hit that in Q3 of 2022. And let's take a look real quick of how this would apply for like the Mach E. So if they hit that in Q3, any Mach E that sold before December 31st of this year would get the full amount of the tax credit. And then for the next 6 months, they would get half of the tax credit, which would be $3,750. And then if you bought it between July 1st and December 31st of 2023, you would then be eligible for a quarter or $3,750. And then after that, nothing. And of course, this is still just based on the estimates of how the sales are going for Ford. And of course, there could be changes enacted by Congress that get rid of that cap. As you are probably aware, there was some talk about raising the amount of the tax incentive, giving a higher incentive or tax credit for US made cars or cars made by union manufacturers. All of that is still up in the air. It's on the back burner right now, as far as I know, in the Senate and House. So who knows what's going to happen, but this is as it stands right now. The 200,000 cap is still there, and the $7,500 amount is still there. So let's go into some example scenarios of the tax credit, because there's a little bit of confusion on how the tax credit actually works. Of course, the tax credit isn't a time of sale tax credit. It's claimed the year after you purchase a car. So we bought our Mach E in March 2021. So now we're filing our taxes this year in April 2022. And this is, what applies to us. So in the first example, say your employer deducts $1,000 a month for federal taxes from your paycheck. That would be $12,000 deducted total throughout the year. And then you calculate your taxes using TurboTax or manually, however you do it. And let's just say your tax liability comes out to be, it should be $15,000 without the EV tax credit. In this scenario, you would owe $3,000 if you didn't have the EV tax credit. But once you apply the EV tax credit, you would actually get back $4,500. So it would wipe out the $3,000 that you owe, and then the remainder you would actually get back as a tax refund. In scenario 2, let's take a look at this. Say again, they are still deducting $1,000 from your paycheck per month, or paychecks, I should say. And again, $12,000 deducted for the year. And this time you calculate it, and your total tax bill for the year is $10,000. And without the tax credit, you would be getting $2,000 back. Add on to that the $7,500, and you would get a total of $9,500 back. In the final scenario that we'll go over, let's say you're having $600 deducted from your paycheck each month. That would total $7,200 in taxes that you paid. And then you calculate your tax liability for the year without the EV tax credit, and it comes out to be $6,000 for your tax liability. In that scenario, you would get back $1,200 without the EV tax credit. And then with the EV tax credit, you would get back a total of $7,200, because that's the amount that you paid for the year. And with the tax credit added in there, it would drop it down to $0 of taxes paid for the year. You can't exceed the amount of money that you paid for the entire year. There's also another tax credit that you can claim on your federal taxes, and that is the home charger tax credit. This is Form 8911, the Alternative Fuel Vehicle Refueling Property Credit. And a lot of people don't mention this one when they're talking about buying an EV, because if you already have one in, you can't claim this and whatnot. But it's just another tax credit and another benefit of buying an EV. It will give you 30% of the installation cost of your home charger install. It's capped at $1,000 of a tax credit for home installations. And it's also capped at $30,000 for commercial installations. And I'm not going to get into any of the business or commercial implications of any of these tax credits, including the one for the EV vehicle, because that gets a little bit more complicated. Hopefully you have an accountant if you have a business and you're trying to balance this stuff out. Now, the bad news with this one is that the EV home charger tax credit expired on 12/31/2021, which means if you installed it last year in 2021, you can claim it in 2022. But as of right now, if you install a charger, you can't claim it next year. That again may change if Congress enacts that. It's been expiring every year, but they keep on renewing it. This year they have not renewed it so far. The form for that one is also fairly straightforward. You don't have to submit any documentation, but you do have to keep your receipts of any bills that you had for materials, electricians, for installing your home charger. And of course, you can also submit the bill, or not submit it, but save the receipt and count that for the cost of the actual EVSE or the home charger. The only thing that you can't really add in, or that you can't add in, are inspection or permits that you have to pull from your local city. Those don't count. You can't use that for this tax credit, but everything else you can. And besides federal tax credit, there are some other sources. We can't really dive too deeply into these because there's too many states and local agencies and stuff like that. We can't really go into it, but I can tell you where to look and things to consider that you might, where you might find some, I would say free money, but some credits and incentives for doing this stuff. So first of all, state governments are a great resource. Some states have some great incentives. I live here in Colorado. We have a $2,500 EV tax credit, which is fantastic. Other states aren't as much. I think there's a couple of states that are higher, not many. There are a few local or regional governments that will have some type of incentive. They may not be for EVs. Some of them are just for the charger installation. But, again, try and check around and see if you can find any for your local or state government. Your dealer where you bought the Mach E, they may be familiar with these. And sometimes, like in California, I know that your dealer has to apply on your behalf for some of the rebates, or they have to be enrolled. So it can get a little bit complicated, but it's worth searching for so you can get some extra cash back. Another great resource that we found here locally in Colorado is from our energy company. And with Excel, for example, they have incentives for an EV purchase if it's new or used for certain income levels. And it's remarkable here in Colorado because it is also available for used vehicles. So that's pretty awesome. Excel also offers a $500 charger installation incentive, and that one just started. So even though the federal tax credit is going away, now we have one here in Colorado that's new for charger installation. So you win some, you lose some. Again, check with your local energy provider. And the final one is, depending on where you live, there may be a time of use discount or incentive. We are in Colorado, just been notified that we're switching as of April 1st. They put a new meter and we will be charged on our energy based on the time of day. So if we charge during the day, it'll cost basically 3 times as much as if we charge at night. So that's something to consider, and a way to save a little bit of money if you can take advantage of that by charging at night. So that's it. That's all the information that I have today on tax credits and incentives. Like I said, you might want to check with your tax accountant or professional. If you are like me and you use TurboTax or something like that, a lot of them will walk you through the process. If you are going through those programs and you don't see that it mentioned any type of EV tax credit or anything like that, if you use their search function, which is what I did with TurboTax, I searched for electric vehicle, and then it said, do you want to do the home charger, or do you want to do the EV purchase credit? And it took me right to the correct place to enter that information so I could collect that credit. So search your local resources, ask your tax professional. If you're using H&R Block, make sure you mention that up front so that they have all the information that they need to prepare your taxes properly. I hope all this information was useful. If it was, share it with your friends that have EVs. Give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And thanks so much for sticking around for the whole video. We'll see you in the next one.
In case you don't know, we just launched a Patreon, which is super scary, but we are shocked that we actually have patrons. Whoa, thank you guys so much. Not only that, but we have unbridled patrons, which means you guys get a shout out. You also get a shout out if you're engaged, but everyone is going unbridled, all full bore. So special thanks to you, Frankie M.,
Andy Ross,
Marlene Strickland,
and Michael Bazariski.
You guys are awesome. Yes.
I think I said that right.
Hopefully. You tell us, Michael. Also, a big thank you to our Whisper patrons who we won't shout out, but we still
appreciate you.
I say that part.
You say that part. She says that part. But we appreciate you. Okay, you say it.
We should go.